Hi, and welcome to another monthly Kickstarter roundup from Rule of Carnage, bringing together all the best that Kickstarter has for the tabletop miniatures gamer. We've got a couple of accessories campaign, a bunch of STLs, and we'll launch straight in with the first of those accessories campaigns, which is Redgrass R9 Solo Desk Lamp Perfect Colour Compact Portable by Redgrass. Every hobbyist needs a decent light source, and this campaign is for a really top end hobby lighting system. So it's got an angled armature so that you can move the light source to any area that you want. It's got, proper daylight settings. It'll give you the ability to get the right colors, get the right shades, really be able to see your mini when you're painting it, which is absolutely vital to any paint job. If you don't necessarily play in daylight areas, it has various settings, but daylight lights really help you to get the right shades and the right tones in your painting. If you're using, normal lighting, internal lighting, a desk lamp, something of that nature, I'd strongly suggest picking up this lamp. Just getting the right light on your minis just makes your painting jump to the next level like instantly. It's probably one of the quickest ways of getting things like up to a higher level with relatively little sort of actual work and impact from you, because you'll just be able to judge every color, every tone just that much more accurately. So yeah, if you don't already have at least a daylight lamp, I'd say definitely swing by this campaign. If you don't have a dedicated hobby light, swing by, pick one up. Really high quality, really nice piece here. Okay, next and last up for our accessories campaigns, we've got Battle Mats for Masters of the Universe Battleground by Tabletop Parodies. So, obviously, if you are playing Masters of the Universe, this is a great campaign to get in on. If it's not actually Masters of the Universe that you're playing, this is essentially a hex-marked map with a sort of fantasy sort of land image on it. So it's not necessarily only Masters of the Universe it's going to be suitable. Anything that uses a hex marking, this is going to work great for. And one of the main things I think that holds back things like grid-based games is the difficulty of getting a nice looking sort of marked out tabletop. This is a map that's, as I say, hex marked, but it has a lot of flexibility because it's a sort of general rocky ground, grassy rocky ground. This could work for any fantasy setting, but it could work for any sci-fi setting, so long as it's a setting in which grass still exists. This map's going to be great. It's a good size, good looking image, a reliable creator. First time on Kickstarter, but not their first time putting out pieces and putting out projects. This is a pre-existing company, so I strongly suggest swinging by, giving it a look over. Battle mats, generally are a really nice way of getting a tabletop up to the next level of looking good, bringing immersion to a game, bringing a general sort of better look to your playing. So if you don't already have a set of mats, if you do like playing on hex grids and you don't have a hex grid map, swing by, pick this one up. Obviously, again, yes, if you are playing He-Man, this is an obvious choice, but I think this is worth considering for a range of options it opens up. By having something already hex marked out, you have that ability to switch up, try out a system that maybe you've been thinking about or that you might consider in the future, but that sort of the hump of getting hex marking, has been holding you back. So worth checking this one out, well worth giving it a look over. Okay, that's it for our accessories campaigns. Moving on to our STL file campaigns. First up, we've got 20th Century Industrial Estate STL Files by Danny Amengual. So this is a repeat creator that I have featured on the channel before. And what they've put together here is a collection of 20th century industrial STLs. So it's packing containers, conveyors, crates, sort of standing temporary buildings, all the sorts of things you might expect to see on a building site or a loading dock or something of that nature, or any sort of general industrial site. Now, 20th century it's labelled as, and I am a big believer that there should be more contemporary pieces out there, This could totally work, sure, for anything set in the modern day, but it's a strong contender for anything set in a sort of post-apocalyptic world. Things like packing containers make great pieces for laying out general terrain, and there's some really nice scatter pieces, some bits and bobs that really sort of liven up a tabletop. I think if you're playing anything like a post-apocalyptic zombie setting, these would be great. It would make sense why people are sort of scavenging in such an area, and the pieces are really convenient to lay out an interesting tabletop. If you happen to be playing something like Gaslands, the packing containers are absolutely perfect for building a racetrack with. So there's loads of options in this set. Also, you know, you can build out an entire sort of industrial zone. You can play something contemporary like any of the superhero-based games, things like that. You could totally see the sort of characters jumping around from area to area. Lots of very playable terrain. Obviously, the advantage of things like packing crates is nice flat tops, packing containers, shipping containers that miniatures can get on top of, you know, battle on top of, you know, climb up to, jump down from. Really playable, really usable, well worth checking out. Okay, next up for our STL files, we've got Dwarf Empire for the Win by Angel Behiraquez Romero. Okay, this is a really nice campaign by a first-time creator, which is why I think possibly it's struggling a little bit to make its funding goal. I think it's well online to make it. It only needs a tiny number of backers, like 5-10 more backers, and it'd be over the line. It's got 10 more days, and I think it will make it in those last sort of 72 hours. But it'd be great if they could get at least a bit close to the total or over it before those last 3 days to give them a real jump up. What the campaign is for a set of dwarves that would slot very neatly into something like the old world GW line of dwarves. Particularly there's a gyrocopter, a few units, a character. I reckon there's probably something around sort of 3 or 4 units, 500 to 1,000 points if you were playing Warhammer the Old World, or Warhammer Fantasy Battle, something of that nature. There's enough here to get a small force together, a sort of starter force for one of those games, or there's plenty of dwarves there to make out a skirmishing band in any other sort of skirmishing level war game, and get started on something like Kings of War, or broaden out an existing army. These are really lovely sculpts, really nice miniatures put together in some sort of intelligent, thought through units. This would make a great starter force for anybody interested in dwarves, and would give some nice pieces to extend out an existing force. I think it's a real pity that they haven't reached their funding goal yet. I think they do deserve to, but this is the thing that can happen for first time creators. It takes a little while to build up an audience. I'd love to see them back again and doing other projects, but the quality of work is high here. And if they don't sort of succeed in this first campaign, we might not see them return and continue contribute to the hobby. So please, if anybody's sort of considering dwarves or just wants to swing by and give some support to a new creator, check out this campaign, support them, and help them to come back for more campaigns, put out more pieces. Okay, next up for our STL file campaigns, we've got Redwood Platforms STL files by Crab Miniatures. So this is a really interesting terrain campaign. It's for a set of sort of circular platforms attached to redwoods, to large trees. So this is a strong feeling of sort of Endor style setting for something like, obviously, Star Wars. It would work really nicely, I think, in a range of sci-fi settings where you're looking for something a little unusual. You don't want to be in the normal sort of sci-fi environment. Maybe you want to make use of a sort of forest battle mat or something of that nature within a sci-fi campaign. As I say, obviously this would slot straight into a Star Wars campaign, but I think it worked really nicely in a range of minis and setting agnostic sci-fi campaigns, scenarios, settings. I think well worth checking out, and maybe sort of considering some alternative options for a sci-fi setting that you maybe been playing in a sort of urban area or a wasteland battleground. These platforms give height, flexibility, they'll change up the tactical play of how you're engaging on the battlefield. Anything like this that gives some height, gives some sort of different tactical options, I think is a great way to sort of punch up the play and punch up the interest in a game. So if you have been playing something, you find that everything's sort of a bit one level, particularly a skirmish game, a low model count game, well worth checking this out and sort of considering some other options. Okay, next up for our STL files, we've got Harbingers of Chaos, STLs for 3D printing by Next Quest. So this is a campaign for a set of Chaos Warriors that would fit quite nicely into an Age of Sigmar style setting, or really anything fantasy skirmish based where you want some big nasty warriors and heavy pointy scary armor with horns and all that sort of stuff. If I had to pick, I'd say that they've got a bit of a Slaneshi, Zinchi kind of a feel to them. Lots of eyes, some flames, that sort of thing going on. But I think they'd work just fine for any sort of generic Chaos Warrior-y style army, any kind of sort of evil human knights or warriors. In the campaign, they're set on round bases, so they're probably more sort of skirmish game oriented, and every miniature looks like a character, looks like an individual. So I think these will work great for any sort of warband style set game. There are about, I think, 80 miniatures in the campaign, so there's plenty there for sort of 3 or 4 units, a decent sized small to mid sort of ranged force. They'll work, I think, in a whole bunch of fantasy settings. Really nice sculpts, lots of detail. They look very paintable. Nice sort of solid areas of armor, a decent amount of detail, but not too much. And some fun features, like I say, flames, things like that, where you can sort of stretch your painting muscles a little bit. Really nice minis, well worth checking out. Okay, next up for our STL files, we've got Forgotten Towns 2 3D printable fantasy ruins for tabletop by My Dungeon. So another terrain campaign here. This one is for a set of sort of medievally looking ruins. These would work obviously great in fantasy settings, any sort of historic setting, anywhere where there are going to be ruins, ruined buildings. There's a ruined church, there's a windmill, there's some sort of general homes, hovels, whatever you want to call them. Really characterful looking, really nice looking models. Tumbled down, roofs fallen in, walls missing, all those sorts of things. So not only are they characterful, they've got a feature, they feel that there's a history there, they look amazing, but those missing walls and missing roofs and such make the pieces that much more playable, that much more usable. When you've got a sort of enclosed building, it can be a bit of a faff doing whatever, lifting the roof off, opening doors, poking miniatures in and out. When you've got a ruin like this, you can just reach in through a wall, move the mini around, still have the cover options, still have the defensible position options that you would have with a completed building, but it's just that much less fiddly to actually physically play around. As I say, also incredibly atmospheric, really great looking. The level of sculpting and detail here is absolutely top notch. If you're looking for some pieces that are going to be really flexible, really playable, bring tons of atmosphere to the tabletop, and that you're going to get out again and again for, like I say, fantasy, historic, I think even certain sci-fi settings, these are going to be absolutely perfect. Definitely give this one a look over. Strong recommend, really nice pieces. Give it a look. Okay, next up for our STL files, we've got Children of the Sun 2 Fall of the Incas STL and Miniatures by Red Copper Miniatures. So this campaign actually has an option for physical reward miniatures, so it's not just 3D printing STL files. So you've got the option there if you don't have a 3D printer. It's a campaign for really two forces. There's a set of Incan warriors and there's a set of conquistadors. There are add-ons from previous campaigns, so you can really extend those out to being two fairly large forces. The forces are actually in the campaign are a good size already. I think that they're a solid warband size. You could totally play something like Saga with them, and then you can upgrade them out to being like proper mass battle size. The miniatures are, I would say, historically accurate, but without being sort of excessively detailed. So they're really, I think, going to be nice for painting. Have like a lot of sort of ability to get detail in without being excessively onerous. You've got some units, some characters, really everything you'll need for, like I say, a couple of good sized warbands, and then the ability to extend out into a larger force. Obviously, if you do go with the 3D printing option, you've got the ability to repeat print figures, so they could be sort of as large a force as you're willing to double up on. If you're going for the physical rewards, as I say, a set of really nice units, nicely defined, and a good size force. I think if you're considering any sort of historic gaming around that sort of area, that sort of conflict, this is an easy choice. I think if you like historic or historic adjacent gaming, you want a force that's a little bit unusual, not the normal set of European medieval warriors, well worth giving this one a look over. Okay, next and last up for our STL file campaigns this month, we've got Captain Avery Wraith's Treasure by Magic Lore Studios. So this is a relatively small collection of pirate-themed miniatures, and it might be that sort of that's on my mind at the moment because I'm thinking about my own game, Boards and Black Flags, but they're really nice, characterful minis. There's enough here for a sort of small-sized warband sort of skirmishing group, something a bit more narrative-driven, but these guys would work, I think, very nicely for a range of, narrative-driven skirmish games. I could see them, turning up certainly in something like Rum and Bones, if you're playing that. Really, anything that has that sort of theming of something a little bit exotic, a little bit piratey. I think they're really nice miniatures, lots of sort of character and feature to them. If you want a more unusual, small skirmishing scale force, I think swing by, give this one a look over. Okay, that's it for our main STL files. As usual, we've got a Pay What You Want campaign, and this month's Pay What You Want campaign is Pay What You Want by Calab Miniatures. So obviously that's not the most descriptive of titles for a campaign. What this campaign is actually for is for a set of World War II buildings. The Pay What You Want level gives you a sort of German armory with some sandbags and some sort of scatter terrain and some features for specifically making it German, so it wouldn't necessarily need to be German World War II. You could have the option to include those features or not, but if you choose to, it's got the bits and pieces to really make it specific to the setting and the place. The rest of the campaign, there are upgrade levels, as there often are on Pay What You Want, for extra building, extra features, loads of bits and pieces. I would say certainly if you are interested in gaming the World War II period, swing by, pick this one up. It's an absolute no-brainer. I think even if you're not, this sort of contemporary era building isn't something we necessarily see super much. Having it on a Pay What You Want level is great because obviously you can decide what is a fair price for it, pick it up, slot it in the library, build it out, have it available for when you decide to play that setting or an adjacent setting, something similar. Obviously, if you swing by and you support on the Pay What You Want level, please consider upgrading to one of the more specific tiers. Obviously, pay a fair price. But yeah, this is a really nice campaign with a good set of buildings, well worth checking out and looking over. Okay, that's it for January. We're into a new year, 2025. So Kickstarter has picked up quite quickly, faster than I would have expected. this year. There's been a lot of really nice campaigns. I imagine that will sort of roll up even more as we go through February and March into the sort of the main part of the year. As usual, there'll be another roundup in February. There'll be a chat with myself and Mike Hutchinson on building a Kickstarter campaign, actually. But for now, from me, from this episode of Rule of Carnage, this will be a thank you and goodbye. So thank you and goodbye. Bye-bye.